Hi there, so in this video I'm going to show you how to create a dynamic fiscal year calendar table in Power Query with the fiscal year being input into a cell in a normal Excel spreadsheet. So once this query is set up, then users who haven't got any experience of using Power Query can easily update the query to suit whichever financial year start date that they need to create a calendar table for. So use cases for this kind of thing could be whereby if you had say a team of accountants that were creating financial reports for different companies, they would be able to use these queries to create their fiscal year calendar that was appropriate for those companies. Of course, then you can use this dynamic fiscal year calendar table as a dimensions table to create things like profit and loss pivot tables or balance sheets, or if you're looking at analyzing sales, you could use this table to calculate month-on-month growth or difference between last month's sales to this month and all things like that. So I'm just going to get straight into it now. So the first thing we want to do is just start with a completely blank workbook, and in here we're just going to start inputting a couple of basic bits of information. So the first thing that we want to put into here, we'll create this by giving it a label. So going forward, when this is being updated, it's obvious where you need to actually input the information. So in column A, I'm just going to put in here start of fiscal year, and then in the cell next to that in column B, I'm going to just put in there, just as an example, the 1st of August 2019. Just make that a bit bigger, and then underneath that we're going to have a section where the user can put in how long they want the calendar to go out for. So 12 months, 24 months, 48 months, 36, or even just 6 months. So we'll call this number of fiscal months. And in here I'll just put 36, but it could be whatever you like. And once the query is created, when you want to update this, the user will update the date in here that is corresponding to the company they're working on or whatever they need the calendar for, and then you change that as well to however many months you want the calendar to go out for from this start date. So we now need to name these cells so we can actually get this data into Power Query. So what we're going to do in the box here that's just above the A and B columns, where it's got B1 when we're selected on that date cell, is just highlight B1 and in there type start_FY and hit enter on the keyboard. And then on the cell underneath the date where we've got the number of our fiscal months, select B2, and in here I'm going to call this NO_FM and hit enter on your keyboard. So we now want to send this information to Power Query, so I'll start with the start of fiscal year. So just select that cell. Another way to get to that is by actually using the selector here. So if you click start_FY, it'll take you back to that cell. I'm going to go to the data tab in Excel's ribbon, and I'm going to click on from table range, and that's going to open up Power Query. So we can see that it's named a query what we had named or what we had given our cell as a name, the named range. So we'll leave that. We can see that it's changed the type because Power Query has detected that we had a type of date in there. However, it's selected date time, which we don't want. We only want to see the date in there. So just to change that, just click on the icon next to column 1 and then go down to date and click date. And then just click replace current step because we don't need a new step, we just want to replace the old step. And then what we just need to do is drill down on this, so we've not got the date within a table, the query itself is just the date. So what we need to do that is right click on the date in row 1 and then just click on drill down, and then we can see the table has disappeared and you've just got the date there in the query. So to create the next query, what we're going to do is duplicate this query. So just expand, if the query's pane within Power Query when you open it is closed, as you can see here on mine, you just expand it by just clicking on this arrow here. Right click on your first query, which is start_fy, and click duplicate. And then we'll rename that to what we called it in our Excel sheet, so in the named range. So this will be no_fm. Just hit enter, and then all we need to do for this is to well, there's a couple of things we need to do. So if we go to source, we're going to change in the Excel.current workbook, we're going to change the name from start_fy to what we actually named that cell, which was the name of this query, which is no_fm, and hit enter. You can see that the date is now changed to numbers. Now it's changed to type, we've still got the change type here as date, so Excel has changed that number to a date, which obviously is not correct, which we don't want. So what we need to just do in the formula bar is up here where we've got our table.transform column types. After where it's got column 1 and it's got type date, we just want to highlight the type date and just type int64, and we want int64.type. So just click that and then just click the tick, and you'll see that'll change back to a number. And then if you just go to the last step in the applied steps, you can see we've now got our value there as well. So this is the first part of what we need to do. We're now going to create a blank query that is going to create our first query called the fiscal month lookup. And this query is basically going to list all the dates between a defined range that I'm going to type in the formula bar in Power Query. And we're going to apply an index to that. So we get our first date in that list is going to have the index of 1, and the last date in that list is going to have the index of 12. So whichever date you inputted in the Excel spreadsheet in start_fy, that will be the first date on this list. So we'll have the position of 1, and that's going to be our fiscal month lookup. So to do that, if we just click on the home part of the ribbon in the Power Query editor and click on new source at the end under new query, go to other sources and then click on blank query. And in here we're going to type some functions that are going to bring through the dates from the query that we've just created here, so start_fy. So in the formula bar, type equals and open curly parentheses, and then in order to create a list, so what we're going to do here, so I'll go back a step, so we're going to create a list of dates starting from our start of financial year date, or start_fy, which in my case is the 1st of August 2019, and we're going to say the end date is going to be in 12 months time. So that will give us a list of dates from the 1st of August 2019 until the 1st of July 2020. So in order to do that, we have to encapsulate the function in curly brackets, but we also have to convert our date to a number. So to do that, we're going to use the number from function in Power Query. So we're going to type number and then full stop. And then scroll down. If you're unsure of what function you need to use, you can just scroll down the list and find the one you need to use. So here we're going to select number.from. We're going to open regular parentheses, and in there we're going to type start_fy, and that will bring up our query that we've already created. So you can see I've just typed STA and it's there. So I'm just going to hit tab on my keyboard and that's going to complete it. So if you then now just hit the right arrow on your keyboard just to get outside of the parentheses, and we're going to type 2 full stops. So just outside the parentheses we're going to type 2 full stops. That's going to create our list of our dates. So, and again we're going to reference our start_fy query. So we need again the number.from. But this time, instead of just putting start_fy, because if I do that, all we will have is one date in the list, which will be the 1st of August 2019. So this time what we need to do is use another function which is called date.addMonths. So if I type date, full stop, and then add months. And notice here how I've capitalized the first letter of each word. This is case sensitive in here, so if you were to just type date.addMonths and you didn't capitalize add months, or you didn't capitalize date, then it would just fail, it wouldn't work. So after we've done that, we're going to open brackets again, and we're going to start typing our start_FY query, which is there. I'm going to hit tab on my keyboard to complete it, and then we're going to type a comma. This is the number of months that we want to add to the date that we are looking at. So we're looking at the start of FY query, which in my case is the 1st of August 2019, and to get 12 months I need to extend this out by 12 months. However, the start date is on the 1st of the month, so if I put 12 months in here, we're actually going to end up with 13 periods in total. So in here we want to put 11 to get 12. And then that's it. So just you can either go click out of the query and it will refresh it. You can either click the tick next to the formula bar, or you can go to the end of the formula, hit enter. I mean, I usually just click the tick because then it just completes it. So now we've got a list here, and these are just numbers at the moment, but for those of you who have worked with dates in Excel before, these are the date codes that Excel uses. So what we next need to do is convert this list to a table, and you can see at the top in the ribbon here we've got List Tools Transform, and the first option we have under Convert is to Table. So just click that and we get this other box that comes up. Just for the sake of this and to keep the video short, just click OK. We don't need to change these options. So now we have this in a table. What we want to do is change this to a date. So click on this ABC123 next to column and change it to date, and then we want to transform these dates to the month name. So to do that, go to transform in the ribbon, and then under date and time column here you want to click on date, and then go to month, and then the last option, which is name of month. If we click this, it'll transform all the dates to the month. Now we obviously don't want this to be repeating because we just want 12 months. So if you right click on the column anywhere in where it says column 1 in this dark green area, and then just click remove duplicates, and that's now just given us our 12-month names, which is exactly what we want. So there's just a couple more steps now to finish this query off. Next we're going to add an index to this. So if you click on add column in the ribbon at the top in the editor, and then under index column just click the down arrow to the right of where it says index column and click on from 1, and what that'll do, that will give us an index from 1 down to 12. It's basically just counting the number of rows that we have. If you click from 0, the first number here will be 0 and it will end on 11. We need to have 1 to 12 in this case because we are actually using this as our fiscal month. So this now is our fiscal month. And then lastly, before I rename the query and go on to create our actual calendar table, we're just going to rename these columns so they make a bit of sense. So the index I'm going to rename to fiscal month. This isn't case sensitive in here. I just like to be consistent with how I name things, so you can put in here whatever you want. And then I'm just going to rename this to month name. Excellent. And then I'm going to call this query fiscal month lookup. So that's our fiscal month lookup, which we're going to use this in our calendar table to help us calculate the fiscal quarter and the fiscal year. So to create the actual dynamic fiscal calendar table, we can reuse some of what we've already done in this query. So all I'm going to do is duplicate this fiscal month lookup by right clicking on the query in the queries pane on the left, and then just click duplicate. The starting point for this query is exactly the same, all bar this in here. So if you remember when we started this in the spreadsheet, we put in row 2 the number of fiscal months, and we named that NO_FM and create a query for it. So what we're going to do, we're going to reference that query within the source of this query in our date.addMonths function at the end of start FY. So in there, just highlight the number 11 and just type NO, and that will bring up our query that we created earlier. So just click that and then just click the tick to the left of the formula bar. Now you haven't seen much update because all that would have done is just added a load more dates to this list. So what we're just going to do is go through some of the steps so we can see the dates, and you will see that this then goes out to 36 months. So convert it to table, we want to keep that because we want to convert it to a table. We want to change the type to a date. So now what we don't want anything after this change type, because we may want the month name in our final calendar table, but we don't want to transform this column to get the name. We want to add a new column to get the name. So what I'm going to do is, and actually that goes for everything beyond this, we don't want the remove duplicates, the added index, or the rename of columns. So what we're going to do is right click on the extracted month name in the applied steps, and then we're going to click delete until end, and what that's going to do is delete all the queries underneath change type. So we're just left with this one column. So we're actually going to keep this column. We're not going to actually make any physical changes to this column. We're just going to add columns from here. So I'm going to rename this column the calendar date, and this can be used for your unique key for this table. So if you've, say, got a table full of sales data that has a column in it that has the date the sale was made, that would be your unique identifier between this table and your sales data, which is what you can then build your calculations off of to create things like sales growth, month-on-month change, all that kind of thing. So we're going to leave this column as it is and create other columns off of it. Next, we're going to add our column that is going to be used as a lookup to bring in our fiscal months from our fiscal month lookup query. So to do that, if you go to the add column section of the ribbon in Power Query, and again go to date, and then on month we'll go name of month, and that will give us our name of month. We need this column as a lookup column to get our fiscal month number. So next what I'm going to do is do a merge. So if we go to the home section of the ribbon and click merge query, and then on the first section we've got the fiscal month lookup 2. We will rename that when we're finished. This will turn into dim calendar in my case. And then under this blank box here we're going to select our fiscal month lookup, so our first query, or the last query we create, sorry. So we want to select the month name from the top section here, and we want to select the month name from this bottom section here. And we can see that the selection matches 1097 of 1097 rows of the first table. So just click OK. And then we're going to be presented with another column that's going to allow us to bring in the data from our fiscal month lookup. So if you untick month name, because we already have that, and untick use original column name as prefix, and click OK, that is going to bring in our fiscal month number, or effectively our index. But what this has done, this has given us a fiscal month that is associated with each of these calendar dates. And we're now going to use that to create our fiscal year and our fiscal quarters. So now we have this column, we can think about creating our fiscal year and our fiscal quarter calculations. But before we do that, there's just another column that we need to add from our calendar date. So if you select calendar date, just click the header, go to add column and date again, and under month this time we want end of month, so just click end of month, and that will just give us the end of month date for whatever date this is. So now we have that in there, we can now create our fiscal year and fiscal quarter columns. So go to the add column section of the ribbon again up here, and we're going to click custom column. I'm going to create the fiscal year first, so I'm just going to name this fiscal year. And we're going to use an if formula to calculate our fiscal year using the end of month date. So we're going to type if, and you can either we can either type a square, open square bracket, and it will bring up the columns in the table that we are creating this column in, or you can simply just double click on the column you want. So in this case I want fiscal month. So if fiscal month is less than, and what I want to do is get the month number now from, we can either take it from the end of month date or the calendar date, doesn't really matter, but to get the month number of a date column, we're going to use the function that is called date.month, open parentheses, and within there I'm just going to put in end of month. So this, what we're saying is if the fiscal month is less than the end of month date, then, so this is the part of the formula where you're going to get the year, so the result. So we're going to use the function date.year, and then in the brackets put in the end of month date, close parentheses, and +1. And then the only other condition is if the fiscal month is greater than the end of month date. So we're just going to type else, and we'll do date.year, open parentheses, end of month, this time with no 1 at the end. And if I click OK, you will see that this has given us a fiscal year that changes by date. So the start of our financial year of the 1st of August 2019 is going to be ending in 2020. So your fiscal year for that year, or for this date range, is 2020. Likewise, when we get to the 1st of August 2020, our financial year is going to be ending in 2021. So the next column I'm going to create is going to be, we can also add some text to this, we can add some characters to this as well if you want. So if we just go back into that formula, so on the added custom, just click the cog. And at the start of the formula, I'm going to type quote, FY, quote, ampersand, and then we need to encapsulate the entire if statement into a function that's going to convert the number to text. And that function is called text.from. So we'll do open brackets, and then we'll just close the brackets, or close the parentheses I should say, at the end of the formula, and click OK. And you'll see now we have FY 2020 in there. You can obviously mess around with this format if you want. We could put in here, so where we've got the FY in the quotes, if you put a space in there and click OK, you'll get a space. We could go back and you could put a hyphen instead of a space. So you kind of get the idea. If you want to actually type the word financial year, you could. It's kind of totally up to you, but we'll leave it at that for now. So next we're going to create the column for our fiscal quarter. So I'm going to call this fiscal quarter. And again, with this column, I want to display the character Q in front of the number, so it will say Q1, Q2, Q3, Q4. Again, if you want it to say quarter, we can change it. You can change it to quarter here as well. So we'll type quote, do the letter Q, ampersand, text dot from, and open parentheses. And this time we're going to use the number roundup function. Because we're going to be dividing the fiscal month number, so this column here, by 3, which we want to round up with no decimal places, because a quarter number is always going to be a whole number. There's never going to be decimals. So for that we're going to type number dot round up, open brackets, double click on your fiscal month, and then just divide by 3 and then do comma 0, and that's just saying we're going to divide it by 3 and we want to round it up with no decimal places. So just close brackets on that, and then we need to close them once more because we've got our text.from function, and click OK, and that will give us our fiscal quarter number, just like that. Now these two are these are the only columns that we need to calculate using the custom column function in Power Query. You can add more columns to this just using the UI editor. So if I was to click on calendar day again, and just make sure you're on the add column and not transform. If you're on the transform column and you say, for example, if I go on quarter, that's just going to change that to quarter of the year, which of course you can do if that's what you need. But if your intention is to add the column, make sure you're on the added column section of the ribbon. So I'll just get rid of that. If I just go back to add column, we'll just run through some of these. So it's just important to note that these quarters here that will be displayed are going to be calendar year quarters, so they won't be fiscal. The same with week numbers, they will just be week numbers or weeks of the calendar year, not fiscal. We can add stuff in here like, you know, name of day. So if you wanted to say, if you had a report that you wanted to filter that showed sales results by days of the week, you would add this column in, and you could use this either in a pivot table, or if you're not using pivot tables, you could use it in a sum if to sum your values by the days of the week. We could also bring in here stuff like number of days in the month. So if I do that, we've now got the number of days in a month, which you may want to use by, you know, to work out the average sales by day in a month, or to say work out debtor days or creditor days, if you're using those kind of ratios in a KPI report or in a balance sheet. So really it's kind of up to you, but so the only custom columns that we need to create we have now created, which is the fiscal month, which comes from our fiscal month lookup, our fiscal year, and our fiscal quarter, which we added using the custom columns. So then the rest of the columns that you're seeing here are just, you know, as we've just seen, via the UI in the Power Query editor. So I'm just going to rename this now before I save it down, and I'm just going to call it dim calendar, or sorry, no, dim fiscal calendar. And then we're going to go to the Home tab, and under Close and Load, click Close and Load to, and I'm going to load them as a connection, because none of these queries yet have actually loaded. So I don't want all of them loaded to a table or a pivot table or a pivot chart even. Not that you probably use a pivot chart for a date calendar, but anyway. So I'll just click OK on that, and then we'll see on the right hand side of Excel we've now got our queries and connections come up. And then from here I'm just going to load the fiscal calendar to a table. So I'm just going to click Load To, and I'm going to change that to table, and by default it's selected a cell of the sheet that I'm currently on. Now I obviously don't want to load it to there because it'll mess up how this is displayed. It'll push this all the way over here. So I'm just going to load the table to there. And click OK. So we can see the table here, and then I just wanted to run through and show you how then it's next updated. So at the moment our start of year is the 1st of August, as it is here, and we've got 36 months. So if I go down to the bottom, we can see we end on the 1st of August 2022. So say if we only wanted to see, or say for a start, if you're coming in here and you'll say your company's beginning of the financial year is the 1st of January 2017, and you want to see 12 months. So we update that and then just click refresh all. That's now refreshed to 1st of January. We've got all of our months, or our end of months here. So we can see that January, February and March are quarter 1, April, May and June are quarter 2, July, August, September are quarter 3, and then quarter 4 is October, November and December. Now you'll probably see that we've got a bit of a rogue date at the end here from the next period, and that's because our start of fiscal year is the first of a month. So we can get rid of that, and we can just do that by actually editing the query, editing our dim fiscal calendar. So if we go to edit, we can change that in the fiscal calendar query in source. So at the moment we've got the sort of last date in our list encapsulated in this number.from and our date.add months. So what we can actually do from the date.add months is date.add days. So once we've typed date.add days, we want to open parentheses in front of our date.add months function, and then at the end of the close brackets after our date.add months, we want to do comma and then -1, and then we'll need to close parentheses again because we've added in another function. We've got another set of parentheses, so if we need to do that. If you don't do that, you'll get this error, and it's saying that there's a token common expected, and we can actually see here that it's pointing to where the error is. So if you just put in a closed parentheses in there, that'll fix the issue. So what that should have now done is remove that rogue date at the end. So if I close and load this, you see that that 1st of January 2018 has disappeared. So this is now just a true 12-month table. So for example, then we can change the number of fiscal years as you see fit. So I mean, say you might only want a month in there, so you change that to 1, hit refresh, we've just now got 1 month. Change it to 6, you've got 6. We could go really crazy and change it to 120. And we can see that the calendar is loaded 3,652 rows. We go to the bottom, it goes all the way out to 2026. So hopefully you found this video useful. I'm going to be creating another video shortly that uses this fiscal calendar table to create a profit and loss and balance sheet pivot table report using data that is extracted directly to Excel from Zero, that is updated with Power Query and the data.dir add-in for Excel as well. And of course, off of that we can create multiple KPIs for, as I've already mentioned, month-on-month growth or creditor or debtor days, or for whatever your use case is. So hopefully you found this video useful, and yeah, make sure you subscribe and like this video to get updates about my next video when it's posted.